Let's get peppy. Welcome to PEP 107. I am Chaz Licciardo from ABC's Planet America, and this is Dr. David Smith. Hello, Dave.
Hello, and my usual disclaimer, I'm from the US Studies Centre, but I do not represent the opinions of the US Studies Centre. I represent my own opinions on this podcast.
When we return next year, I'm going to make a note of this. I'm going to give you some disclaimer music.
Okay.
Every single time.
Right.
You've earned some disclaimer music, I feel, after 107 episodes, Dave.
Okay, yes, good.
That's coming. That's a real great teaser for next year.
Yes.
But, for those who aren't sick to death of me, there has been a lot of me over the last week on Planet America on Monday nights. There was a special on Wednesday night. There's an extra off the planet on iView and Facebook and YouTube. Facebook, ABC Planet America. And I think we're looking at another special on Wednesday. Coming up next week, we'll have Planet America on Monday and another special on Wednesday night for Trump announcing presidency, which is supposedly going to happen on Tuesday night. Now, because of that, I propose that we basically don't mention Trump.
I completely agree.
Like, there's going to be plenty of Trump coming up over the next little while.
Yeah. A lot of the coverage has been very Trump-focused
Totally.
already. Yes.
I hate talking about him, personally speaking. Like the ABC loves being outraged by Trump generally, I find, whenever I'm doing an ABC interview.
Well, because it's the clicks.
It is.
Let's be honest, it's the clicks.
But speaking of myself, I find him incredibly tedious. Like my children have just moved past the point of their development where they were emotionally acting like Trump.
Right.
They're past that now. I don't want to go back to that.
Okay, well, let's stop talking about him right away.
Let's do that. So let's go into everything else.
Yes.
So we might mention him incidentally, but let's not go into DeSantis or any of that garbage. Okay. All right. Okay, so 2022. This entire podcast is about 2022.
Yes.
Well, this is the year, but the election and the wash up. So let's see where we can go. I must admit, I'm going to put a disclaimer right at the top. I am not as prepared as I should be.
Okay.
Because as I normally am, because I have just been trying to get my head around it, but there's just too much to get your head around in a day.
Yes.
But I'll do my best, and I reserve the right to correct myself over the coming weeks.
Right.
So first of all, current state of affairs, which I just spoke to Dave about a second ago off air, and I'm already out of date. But I'm going to give you what I've got so far. According to the New York Times, we are tracking towards, in the House, an R221. So 221 seats the Republicans, 214 seats the Democrats. Now that's give or take 10 seats. Okay, there's a lot to go, lot of water under the bridge yet.
Yeah.
They want 218 for majority. Okay, so at the moment they're tracking for a 7-seat differential. Could be 10, could be 15, a lot less than we were expecting.
Yeah, bearing in mind, Democrats for the last 2 years have been operating on a margin of 10.
Yeah.
And that was very small. This could be even smaller.
Absolutely. In the Senate, we are tracking towards, well, at the moment we're on 48 Democrat, 49 Republican with Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia to come. Arizona is looking extremely likely to go Democratic at this point in time. So I think you can pretty much, Kelly is 5.6 points, was that?
Yep.
I was about to say 5.1, but there's an update.
Yes.
5.6 points ahead at the moment.
So thank you, Peter Thiel. Absolute bang-up job. Your intervention into politics has gone so well.
And also the person who we're not going to mention.
Yes.
Who also helped as well. That should close up a bit from 5.6 points.
Yes.
But we don't know.
Yep.
Either way, it's not going to close up 5.6 points.
Yes.
So that's pretty much in the bank,
Remember,
I think.
Arizona is something of a blue mirage state. Nevada is something of a red mirage.
Exactly. Nevada, by contrast, Adam Laxalt, last I saw, I don't know if this is the latest, was up by 1.8 points. Is that still the case?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Laxalt was up by 1.8 points. As Dave said, red mirage state is going to be a red tail. That was with 83% counted.
We'll just say with Nevada, so John Ralston has quite confidently been predicting that Musto Cortez is going to win this.
So he's
I have
sure of it?
never seen him be wrong.
No, he knows Nevada.
He's the most accurate political predictor in the country, and it's because he's very concentrated on this one state that he knows very well.
Okay, well, if we give the Democrats both those seats, and that's 50, which means they've got the Senate.
Yeah.
Without Georgia.
Well, it means they've got the Senate plus Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's without Georgia, without the Georgia runoff.
Yeah.
And that would mean I've already been wrong on 2 seats because I said that I predicted the Republicans would take Nevada
well, you're
and
not
Pennsylvania.
necessarily wrong yet. I mean, John Ralston, this could be John Ralston's black swan.
I'm wrong on Pennsylvania yet.
Oh, yes, you are.
Yes, because I originally was saying that Fetterman would keep Pennsylvania, but after the debate, I was like, no, he's not going to keep Pennsylvania.
I think the debate improved his prospects. I think he had a very strong message that came through.
I'm not sure it improved his prospects, but it clearly didn't hurt them. At the very least, it didn't hurt them. So the polling suggested otherwise, but the polling was wrong. And we'll be talking about that in a second. Anyway, but I just want to just put it on the table there. I was wrong.
Okay.
There we go. But that's the Senate and the House. Now, the Cook Tracker has a popular vote margin of 5.9% at the moment to Republicans. Mm-hmm. That's not going to hold. That's before California.
Yes.
Okay. So that's gonna come in quite a lot.
That's the projection I've seen is 2.5%.
Yeah, I was going to say. Remember, also Republicans have a 1 to 2 point advantage on the popular vote because there are They have a dozen extra seats.
Yes.
That are uncontested.
Yep.
So an actual 50-50 contest would be Republicans at about 1.5 points up.
Yes. Yep.
So and what I've seen is somewhere around 2 to 2.5 points is what people are predicting.
Yes.
For the Republicans, but we'll see about that. Turnout is looking to be at about 47% of potential voters. Compared to 2018, which was 49%, and that was the highest for 100 years.
Yes.
So that's still a high turnout, not quite as high as 2018, but still very high. And the reason why, you might be wondering why we even talk about turnout. Who cares about the percentage of turnout? The reason why it matters is because it's actually connected to what everyone does talk about, which is waves.
Yes.
Because we're certainly about to talk about the lack of a red wave, and that is tied very much to turnout.
Absolutely
because
it is.
It's almost impossible to get extra people to turn out for you.
Yes.
But what is easy to do is to discourage the other side from turning out.
Absolutely correct.
And so usually a wave means that one side stayed home. So when there's a huge turnout, it means both sides turned up, and that's what's happened here. So there isn't a wave. Now, and the other thing I'd say about the other way you can tell it's not a wave at the moment is if you look at the toss-ups, they've been going more towards Democrats than Republicans.
Yes.
And that's usually a sign. What side, what direction are the toss-ups going?
Yes.
Not that we need a sign because it's still very much 50-50.
But do you know what wave did happen? The money wave.
The money wave.
So Open Secret says $16.7 billion was spent on this election.
Wow.
That breaks every previous record for a non-presidential election by quite a long way. To give you a bit of a flavour of that, in Georgia, Herschel Walker and his allies alone, that's just one side, spent $250 million. And I would suggest if actually Nevada and Arizona do end up splitting and Georgia turns out to be the decisive race, that could be $1 billion race.
Yeah. Oh, well, last time it was
$500 million on each side.
Yeah. Well, last time it was, I think, 750 million.
Yes, it was. In the double runoff.
Yeah.
That could be the most expensive race in history. So, as well as the high turnout, there's been very high investment in this election from both sides, but particularly from Democrats.
Yeah, very much so. Can I also say you've been vindicated again on your Florida call?
Yep.
How fast was Florida with the
Florida
count?
was
It was
incredibly
like an hour.
Yes.
It was just,
And look, rest of America, you can do that too.
You can.
Florida learned from its mistakes in 2000, and they worked out how to do it quickly. Florida, it's not like it's a naturally fast counting state. It's a very big state, both geographically and population-wise, and it's very diverse.
and it's got lots of alligators. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that can go wrong.
That's right. Yeah, there's all kinds of ways in which poll workers can be eaten, but nonetheless, they still manage to do it very quickly, cleanly, and efficiently. Like nobody is disputing the results.
Yeah, also special participation award to Wisconsin. They went
Yes.
really
Yeah,
fast
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. And they've got the other thing they've got over Florida
Yeah.
is they've got a non-partisan elections commission as well,
Yes,
which
yeah.
is nice.
Now,
So-
bear in mind, I'm talking about Florida's vote count. I'm not talking about the administration of elections
Yeah,
in Florida,
I
which is a nightmare.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Wisconsin is fast and they administer well.
Yeah.
So one of I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but Tim Michaels, the guy who lost, one of the reasons why I wasn't much of a fan of him was because he wanted to disband the Elections Commission, which is the best part of Wisconsin.
Of course he did, yes.
and by the way, it was set up by a Republican like only 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But anyway, Florida did very well. We'll talk about their result in a second. But the other thing I want to just off the bat just say the big surprise so far for me has been not really any fraud claims.
No.
Kari Lake, she cleared her throat.
Yeah, she's got one ready to go.
But,
she loses. Yeah.
But at least so far, given how many like absolute humdinger election deniers are on the ballot and losing.
Yes.
They're all conceding.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah. This is what happens when you don't have a central focal point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably part of it.
Yeah. If you're going out with a fraud claim, you don't know who is going to actually go along with you. And you probably make a calculation that not many people are going to get behind you.
Yeah.
Very different when the undisputed central leader of the party and the president of the United States starts that machine up.
Well, Trump,
everybody's going to get behind it.
Trump tried to.
He did try.
He tried to and he failed in Detroit.
Yes.
He truthed out.
Yes.
The absentee ballot situation in Detroit is really bad. People are showing up to vote only to be told, sorry, you've already voted. This is happening in large numbers elsewhere as well. Protest, protest, protest.
Yeah, but he's no longer the president and he doesn't have his Twitter megaphone anymore. Yeah.
No. And maybe people don't care about the midterms quite as much as presidential contests.
It's cold in Detroit.
It's cold.
There was an amateur song once called "It's So Cold in the D." Highly recommend you look that one up. And
really?
people don't want to go out there.
I'm gonna put that in the homework.
It's So Cold in the D by T Baby.
Okay. Anyway, but that was good to see, even if there are good explanations for it.
Yes.
Notable races before we get into the polling wrap up. Okay, just jump in anytime you want to flag one. Abigail Spanberger won in a R+3 district.
Yes.
And that is important because she is the numero uno moderate Democrat.
Yes.
She's the one that they all really, really are backing to represent them in the future.
That was also, just in terms of the chronology of the election, that was the really important early sign about how things were actually going. There was the three Virginia races, Spanberger, Luria, and Wexton.
Yep.
Yeah, Wexton and Spanberger winning was an indication that it was going to be, at best, a close Republican win.
And Luria had the toughest one.
Yeah, Luria.
Well.
Yeah.
She did. She lost to Luria. Spanberger, for those who don't know who I'm talking about, was the one back in 2020, you might recall, had that conversation amongst the caucus where she was screaming at them, no one should say defund the police ever again. Nobody should be talking about socialism. If we don't move away from the fringe, we will get fucking torn apart in November 2022, she said. And, she didn't get fucking torn apart.
No, she didn't. No.
So,
held together very well.
There we go. Anyway, so Lauren Boebert, unfortunately, looks like she's going to scrape through.
Yeah, this is the biggest disappointment of the election.
Colorado 3. Last I saw, she was 1,200 votes up.
Yeah.
That's an R+15 district.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so she's 15 points underperforming.
Yes.
538 only gave her a 3% chance of losing. And she almost did it. For those who don't remember who Lauren Boebert is and why I think most Republicans are sad to see that she hasn't lost.
Yeah.
She's the one who, when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wore that dress that said tax the rich at some ball, at the next social occasion that Boebert turned up to, she wore the same dress, except for written on it said, let's go Brandon. So that gives you an idea of what she's like. And just to see her at her very best, this is a clip which I've been meaning to play for some time, and this is a great opportunity to play. So all enjoy the best of Lauren Boebert.
As you see the end draw near, we know that we are in the last of the last days. But it's not a time to complain about it. It's not a time to get upset about it. This is a time to know that you were called to be a part of these last days. You get to have a role in ushering in the second coming of Jesus. How cool is that?
How cool is that?
The end of days almost came sooner for her than she thought it was going to, but sadly it did not. Sean Patrick Maloney lost in New York.
Yes.
He's the chair of the DCCC. That's the funding arm for the congressional Democrats.
Yep.
It sounds like a big get. Sounds like a big scalp. Not really.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't a massive shock. We'll get to New York a little bit later on.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's part of an important little trend in New York. Yes.
There was basically a massive stuff up, which we'll talk about
Yes.
when we get there. Curry Lake is the race that I've been freaking out about all cycle, as you know,
Yes.
because I've long maintained that this is the toughest part for her to get through this election.
Yes,
If she gets through this election, she is going to become the queen of the Republicans.
Yes.
And I don't know how far she's going from there because she's definitely a talented person.
Yes.
Also a crazy person. But at this point in time, what was the last numbers that you said?
The latest numbers is she's trailing by 28,000 votes.
Okay, I think it was 1.4%.
1.4%.
Yeah, 1.4%. Okay, so that's going to be real close because there is a
Yes.
a red tail coming there.
There absolutely is.
Yeah. But
So I think it's 83% of the vote counted
yeah,
at this point.
yeah,
Yeah, that one is going to be very, very close.
really, really close. And if Curry Lake wins by like 2,000 votes or something, I am definitely going to be told you so on that debate that Hobbs didn't attend. that chose not to because
Meanwhile, if Hobbs wins by 2,000 or 3,000 votes, I'd say Curry Lake is definitely going to contest it.
oh yeah. I reckon from here I'm willing to call right now. She's going to contest whatever happens from here.
Yeah.
Like, she's not one to accept an outcome lightly.
Yes.
But anyway, that's
Anyway, they are saying it could take up to 12 days to fully count that race.
Yeah. Any other races you want to spotlight before we go more generally? There was one you texted me about during the actual call.
Oh,
Your favourite race. I can't believe I mentioned it.
Yes, we have.
Wiley Nickel.
Wiley Nickel defeating Bo Hines in North Carolina.
And why did you spotlight that for, Dave?
Because it was the battle of the most southern names in the South. And it turned out that Wiley Nickel is more southern than Bo Hines. So congratulations, Wiley Nickel. Bo Hines is another former college football star who really had no business being in the race apart from the fact that he had Trump's backing. And that is one of the races that recriminating Republicans are now pointing at as an example of the malinfluence of the person who we keep promising not to talk about.
Because that's it was a flip, wasn't it?
Yep.
So that was a valuable one for the Democrats to take. How would you rate Bo Hines compared to Herschel Walker in terms of qualification for office?
Herschel Walker's way better.
Wow. I've got to pay attention.
That's as a football player.
No, I'm talking about as qualifications for office.
Oh, they're both completely unqualified.
Absolute zero. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. I understand. Okay, let's go into polling. Now, I want to revisit. Do you remember either the last podcast before the election or the second last? I talked about the New York Times Siena poll.
Yes.
Which was extremely different
Yep.
to some of the other polls.
Yeah.
And how Nate Cohen had been fretting about this, but saying, you know what, I'm not going to put my thumb on the scale. This is what the numbers say.
Yes, yeah.
Even though they're completely different to everyone else's numbers.
Yep.
Let's go back and have a look at them.
Yes.
New York Times Siena had Fetterman leading by 6. Insane.
Yes.
Compared to a 538 average of +1.
Yeah.
And all the Republican pollsters
Yes.
had him losing at that point in time.
Yeah.
He's won by 4 so far. And he's probably going to increase that.
He is going to increase that.
So that looked pretty good.
Yep.
He also insanely had Mark Kelly leading in Arizona by 6. 538 had him leading by 3. The Republican pollsters had him losing. Kelly's currently ahead by 5.6, was it?
Yep.
Yep. Now that's going to close up. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Who knows?
But the other ones, they're all a bit closer. It was like he had Warnock leading by 3. 538 had Warnock leading by 0.7 and Warnock's leading by 1 and a bit.
Yes.
So that's fair enough. He had Cortez Masto in a tie. That's looking pretty good.
Yeah, that is.
And so that New York Times Siena poll, which looked kind of sus, now looks really good.
Well, this is the
hindsight.
trend of the last few elections, isn't
Yeah.
it? There's this one weird poll that turns out to be the correct one. It's very rare that it's attached to a mainstream news organisation, but yes.
And do you remember, and the reason I'm highlighting this is because do you remember I took some time to talk about this poll because
Yes.
Nate Cohen went into some detail about
yeah.
all his fretting.
Yep.
And one of the points he made
Yeah.
was that everyone else
Yes.
was doing this recall vote adjustment thing.
Right.
Which
yes.
was they were adjusting the numbers based on the proportions of the people answering who said they voted last time for X or Y to try and balance the proportions. And as we said at the time, that is clear. All political science suggests that more people say they voted for the winner
Yes.
than actually vote for the winner.
Absolutely.
Which means when you adjust it, you're adjusting towards the loser of the
Yes.
last election, which in this case would be the Republicans.
So this was bad practice that ignored a lot of pre-existing evidence.
Yeah, and Nate Cohen said, we're not going to do that, even though if we did do that, we'd end up with the same numbers as everyone else.
On your Nate.
We're not going to do that, and they turn out to be right.
So therefore, don't make that mistake again.
So at this point in time, now I've given Nate Cohen a little pout in the head.
Now you're going to give him a punch in the face.
No. I'm giving someone else a punch in the face.
Oh, okay.
This is a section I like to call Trafalgar's Waterloo, even though that is historical nonsense.
Ah, that's a good one.
So, let's go through some of the other pollsters, shall we, Dave? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I've spotlighted the final 17 picks made by Trafalgar polling.
This is serious research,
Yeah.
right? Chaz has done independent research. So I know that, some of you might not be devoting your full attention to the podcast like you've got it on while you're washing the dog or something. No, stop whatever it is you're doing and listen because Chaz is making a very serious piece of research here.
I entirely am. And if you recall, I did this last time as well, except it wasn't called Trafalgar's Waterloo because Trafalgar did pretty well last time.
Yeah.
Let's see this time. Nevada Senate is currently it's a Republican 1.8 at the moment, expected to close to a tie or something like that. They had Laxalt ahead, Republican by 5. They had Laxalt up by 5. 538 had basically a tie, R plus 0.2 they had. So I'm giving that to 538-1, Trafalgar 0.
Okay.
By the way, what I'm doing here is not just playing off against each other. I'm saying who gets hits. So that's a hit for 538 because they're basically dead on.
Yep. Okay.
Right. I'm calling a hit if you're within 2.5 points of the final outcome.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Or the predicted final outcome at this point in time.
Yep.
Michigan governor's race.
Yes.
Whitmer won by 10.6. Trafalgar had Tudor Dixon winning by 0.3.
Which indicates they hadn't actually spoken to anyone in Michigan about it.
538 had Whitmer by 6. 538 stays at 1. Trafalgar stays at 0 because even though 538 were a hell of a lot closer than Trafalgar, they weren't within 2.5.
No,
I'm
they were
giving
not.
it to them. I'm not giving it to them. I'm being strict here. Arizona Senate, currently Kelly up by 5.6, should close up. Trafalgar had Masters winning by 1.5.
Yeah.
538 had Kelly winning by 2.5. I am going to give 538 that because I think it's going to close up to within 2.5 points eventually.
Okay, but you could lose it later on, 538.
You
so
could.
don't celebrate your Chaz point yet.
This is a live tracking point.
Yes.
So 538-2, Trafalgar 0. Arizona Governor, Curry Lake, currently down by 1.4, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Trafalgar had Lake up by 3.6. 538 had her up by 2.2. So at this point in time, neither's getting the vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 2-0. Popular vote. Okay, 538 didn't do popular vote, but Trafalgar did. They had Republicans winning the popular vote by 5.7, which is spot on right now before half of California have been counted. So that's going to be a no.
Albeit, politically, they do inhabit this fantasy universe where California is not actually part of the United States.
Sure. You can give them a Dave point if you want. Anyway, it doesn't count because there's no 538 prediction for that. Georgia Governor, Kemp currently ahead by 7.6. Trafalgar had Kemp winning by 8.9. Not bad. 538 had him up by 8.2. Better, giving them one each. Okay. So that's 538-3, Trafalgar 1. Georgia Senate, Warnock ahead by 1. They had Walker winning by 3.6. 538 had Walker up by 1.2. 538 gets the point. 5-1. So 4-1. North Carolina Senate. Bud is currently ahead by 3.6. Trafalgar had Bud winning by 6.4. I'll give him a pity point for that. That's almost there.
No, don't give him a pity
no
point.
pity points. No pity points.
No,
All right.
and also, I've got to point out,
Yeah.
538 is a bit disadvantaged in this because their averages include Trafalgar's garbage.
That is true. That is
Yes.
true. That is true. But, they wait.
But that was their choice.
Yeah, that was their choice.
That was your choice.
538 gave Bud 4.8, so they're going to get a point for that one.
Okay.
So that's now 5-1. I'll have to adjust because of the pity point.
Yeah.
The lack of pity point. Ohio Senate. Vance currently ahead by 6.6. Trafalgar had him up by 10.4. 538 had him up by 6.4. Trafalgar gets a point. 6-1. Wisconsin Governor. Currently, Evers is winning by 3.4. They had Tim Michaels winning by 1.6. 538 had Michaels winning by 0.4. So neither of them gets the point.
Neither.
6-1. Wisconsin Senate. Ron Johnston ahead by 1. They had Ron Johnston winning by 2.7. I'll pay that. 538 had Johnston winning by 4.8. That's one where Trafalgar were better than 538.
Whoa.
So that's 538 6, Trafalgar 2. Pennsylvania Governor. Currently Shapiro's up by 14.2. They had Shapiro winning by 4.3. So they were 10 points off. 538 had Shapiro by 9.8. Not close enough. Neither gets the point. 6-2. Pennsylvania Senate. Fetterman winning by 4.2. You'll never guess what Trafalgar had. They had Oz winning by 2.2. 538 also had Oz winning by 1. That's 6-2. Colorado Governor. Polis is currently up by 17.4. They had Polis winning by 7.1. 10 points off again. There's a bit of a trend here on the 10 points off.
Yes.
It's like the fourth one. 538 had Polis by 16. So 538 gets a point. 7-2. Colorado Senate. Bennett currently up by 12.5. Trafalgar had Bennett winning by 1.5. 10 points off again. 538 had him winning by 8. That's not close enough. No one gets the point. New York Senate Schumer currently up by 12.7. They had Schumer winning by 10.6, so they get the point for that. 538 had them up by 18.9. They don't get the point, so Trafalgar gets what is really a pity point there, but they're getting it anyway. 7-3. New York Governor Zeldin, this is fun. He's currently losing by 6. They had him winning by 1. 538 had him losing by 9.6. I'll pay 538 there because there are more postals coming in and that margin's blowing out.
What was Trafalgar's methodology here?
I don't know. That's part of the magic of Trafalgar is they don't tell you their methodology. Washington Senate. This is a good one as well.
Yeah.
Patty Murray currently had by 13.4.
6 more years. 6 more years.
They had Patty Murray winning by 1. 1.2 they had. 538 by 8.6. So neither gets the point, but that's embarrassing for Trafalgar.
By the way,
Another 10
just sorry
point.
for the Patty Murray fans. This is the last time we're mentioning her for the next 6 years.
Yeah, she's
because
not-
she will not do anything
She's definitely not
for the
coming
next
up.
6 years. But she will get re-elected again.
I think that was my snarky message back to you, wasn't
Yes,
it?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it was, yes.
Yeah, no,
We
I'm
were just
honouring
texting
that
each
promise.
other the whole time.
We do not talk about Patty Murray.
We do not. We do not. We do not talk about Bruno or Patty Murray. The final score in the head-to-head, I believe, is 538 on 8 and Trafalgar on 3. In terms of wrong outcomes for
Yep.
17 races, it was Trafalgar 6 and 538 3. That is getting the person winning
Yes.
wrong.
Yep.
Out of 17 races, Trafalgar were only more accurate than 538 twice out of 17. For Wisconsin Senate, Ron Johnston,
Yep.
well done on that. And the New York Senate race of Chuck Schumer that no one cares about. So that is the result of Trafalgar versus the rest.
Yeah, look, I maintain Trafalgar got lucky in 2016 and they've been dining out on it ever since.
They did okay in 2020.
I think it's time to ignore these polls altogether.
Well, this is the thing. Because you might think that makes me happy that my boy Nate Cohen did well and Trafalgar didn't do so well. But it doesn't make me happy because the current situation is we got sometimes one group of we've got a big spread on polls.
Yeah.
Sometimes one person's performing, sometimes another person's performing. You're not sure who's going to perform next, which kind of defeats the purpose of polling. That you like if there's a huge spread, you're not sure who's right.
Yeah.
You know, and so until my hope is that Nate Cohen can perform well next time as well.
Hang on,
And
I
so
think you're getting your Nates confused here. Nate Cohen is New York
Yeah.
Times. Nate Silver is
Yeah,
5:30.
I know,
Yeah.
I know that. But I was saying Nate Cohen's the guy who got absolutely spot on.
Oh,
directly
right. Yes.
before
Yeah,
the
yeah,
election.
yeah, absolutely. Yes.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
I mean, 538 did okay.
Yeah,
But
not bad.
But Nate Cohen did better.
Yes, he did. You've
so-
won the NateBowl.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's in the description for sure.
Yes.
But, yeah. So I mean, hopefully we're in a period where the mainstream pollsters will work themselves out, so we
Yeah.
don't have this
thing
uncertainty.
is, okay,
but right
so
now there's a lot of uncertainty.
Mainstream pollsters have had some considerable misses, but I don't think anybody has ever had an array of misses like what Trafalgar just had. And I think,
That was very embarrassing.
yeah, I think that indicates that, Trafalgar has got lucky a couple of times.
I should have done the 10-point miss count. Off the top of my head, I think it was 5. They
Yeah.
did. I mean, it might be 6 that they missed by 10 points or
Yes.
more.
Now, I have seen some headlines of articles I haven't bothered to read saying, oh, the polls actually did pretty well this time. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I just read you out what the 538 did. Do you want me to read it out again?
That's what counts as doing pretty well these days.
Yeah. Oh, look. To be fair,
Yes.
what pollsters always say
Yeah.
is that you shouldn't expect them to be more accurate than 3 points.
No, that's true. Yeah.
And I think the mainstream pollsters were definitely within 3 points.
Yes,
for
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much everything.
What-
from maybe Fetterman Oz.
Yeah. I mean, this seems to be sort of fairly similar in accuracy to 2018, although there were a couple of results in 2018 that were way off. I remember in Ohio and Iowa. They don't seem to have been any that were really conspicuously off this
Not
time.
for mainstream.
No.
For Trafalgar, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for Trafalgar, yes.
Yeah. No, there aren't any 10-point shockers. No.
Yes.
So that is good.
And I think it is worth emphasising that the, this election was a surprise outcome in many ways, but the surprise wasn't caused by polls being way off. It was caused by the expectations primarily generated by Republican politicians, as well as Republican-leaning polls, as well as the way that Democrats themselves seem to be talking and behaving.
Well, when we talk about, the last point is a big point.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
when people see, and I'm speaking of myself here, when I'm talking about other people, when I see recriminations going on one side directly before the election, you think, well, they know something we don't know. They're going to lose.
And also, really, Democrats were directing money and energy into the races that Republicans wanted them to direct them in these blue states. Yeah.
Yeah, but all I would add to what you just said, Dave, is that we've kind of, without being explicit, been talking about Senate polling here.
Yes.
Now, the reason the Senate polling wasn't miles off. In fact, the predictions weren't miles off either. If you take me, because I was basically where a lot of people were.
Yes, yeah,
I got
yeah.
Pennsylvania wrong. I might have got Nevada wrong.
Yeah.
But it's not like they were massive blowouts or anything.
yeah.
Like that is not an unreasonable miss.
No.
Where people are way off is on the House.
Yes.
Like where there's 25 seat, 30 seat, 40 seat
yeah.
predictions, and it's looking like 10 maybe.
Yes.
Right, and the reason for that is not because of polling,
No.
or because of anything. It's because, well, actually, it is because of polling. It's not because of inaccurate polling. It's because of a non-existence of polling.
Absolutely. Yes.
Like there just isn't polling in the
Yeah.
House anymore. All we got is generic ballot, which
Yeah.
is obviously useless.
And a huge story of this election is basically that a lot of closely poised seats went the Democrats' way. Where if it had been a more sort of even split in terms of the way that closely poised seats went, it would have looked not like a red wave, but like a more decisive Republican result. Instead, just a lot of those very close races went Democrats' ways in ways that polls are not designed to actually predict. Like, the polls were actually accurate enough, the ones that existed.
But also the only polls that existed for a number of
Yes.
House seats were partisan polls.
Yeah.
There were literally no
Yes.
mainstream polls for many seats. For instance, Lauren
Yes.
Boebert, I don't think there was one
No.
mainstream poll for her seat.
Yes,
No one had any idea that she was in danger.
Yeah. By the way, this is not to undermine the scale of the Democrats' victory. They didn't get lucky. They got their people out. And they basically held together the same coalition that came out in 2018 and 2020. And that was something that clearly Democratic leaders were not expecting to happen.
Well, let's keep on going on this
Yes.
part, because my next question was, what did the election tell us? So keep on going.
As I said, that coalition held up.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing. Second thing is abortion turned out to be an issue with a lot more staying power than even I expected.
Yeah.
And I thought it had a lot of power. But it really, really had a lot of power. That was reflected directly in the exit polls, where you had 27% of people listing it as their major issue compared to 31% of people listing inflation. We'll get to the abortion ballot measures around the states in a second. One of the reasons why Whitmer did so well was because abortion was such a prominent issue in Michigan. I think that she would have won pretty easily without it, but this is why she was racking up a double-digit margin. It was something that, because of the way that Republicans really worked to de-emphasize it, there were, by the time that the election happened, Democrats actually questioning whether they'd made a really serious strategic error by continuing to talk about it a lot.
Well, they switched their message in the last week to be about democracy.
Yeah. But no, it was that it was very important for maintaining that coalition, and it's a very substantively important issue. So I think that was one of the major things that came out. Yeah,
I'll just keep on going on that one because I've actually been doing a bit of fretting myself, talking to a lot of people fretting.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of fretting myself about this because exit polls are hard to get something out of because they start off extremely inaccurate. They then get adjusted a bit. They become more accurate, but it still takes sometimes months to really have a good idea of what drove a particular election because those numbers they're hard to gather, and especially with different kinds of voting, mail-in voting and on-the-day voting and early voting and so on. There are two broad kinds of, you see NBC polls and CBS polls, they're all the same polls. They're Edison network, what we call network exit polls. They're all using the same pollsters, right? And then there's also AP Votecast, which is not an exit poll. It's just a survey basically at the time of the election with supposedly people who are 100% either likely or just have voted.
Yes.
And they're your two competing forms of exit polls. Sometimes they contradict massively.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you through a little bit of this here. The abortion issue is one which I've been fretting about because, as Dave correctly noted, the network exit polls had the most important issue being inflation at 31%, then abortion at 27%. That was the adjusted number.
Yep.
And then crime at 11%, way back. Which
way down.
Completely contradicted everything that the polls had said before then.
Yeah. But that makes a lot of sense to me because when there's not an actual crime wave happening, what gets reflected in media coverage is sometimes not what is actually happening.
Well, let me tell you, I'll just skip ahead a little bit. I was looking through state exit polls.
Yes.
I've been very busy.
You have been very busy.
And the first thing I did when I saw crime wasn't doing so well was I looked at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Where there is a crime wave.
Yeah.
And where crime is actually an issue to see if it was any different. And it wasn't. It was like 12% crime rather than 11% crime. So it didn't really take anywhere. In Philadelphia, where it was just non-stop crime advertising, it was also 12%. So it's just, so crime didn't take anywhere.
Even when there's a crime wave happening, so even when there's a spike in homicides, the number of people that are directly affected by that is small.
Well, that's certainly at least what the exit polls suggest.
Yeah.
But I just told you the network exit polls, the AP Votecast. Had a list of 9 issues, not 5, because the network exits listed inflation, abortion, crime, gun policy, immigration as your 5 options.
Yep.
For those wondering why democracy wasn't mentioned there, they didn't ask. They only asked 5 options, okay?
Yep.
AP Votecast asked 9 options for their most important question. They had economy and jobs, they combined the two, at 47%. Then abortion was second on 9%.
Wow.
And that was tied with immigration, and then crime was on 8%. And there was a bunch of other 8s and 7s. So who do you believe? This is what I'm saying. There's a problem with exit polls, right? So I looked a little bit more, right? And the next thing was there was a few other questions which I found interesting. This is from the network exit polls. How did you feel when the Dobbs decision was handed down? 39% angry, 21% disappointed. So that's 60% combined.
Yes.
Then there's 21% satisfied, 16% enthusiastic. AP Votecast had 59% combined as angry and disappointed.
Right. So
that
similar.
So that matches for both of them.
Yes.
Okay. So and that's a big number.
Yes, it is.
Of people who weren't happy about Dobbs, which makes me think that maybe the network polls, most important issue, was probably more accurate than the AP vote cast. Because obviously asking 9 issues changes everything.
Yeah. And I think from a survey design perspective, first of all, asking about 9 issues and then making one the obvious choice.
Yeah.
Economy and jobs together. Yeah. I think there'd almost be a social desirability effect there.
Maybe.
Like, you wouldn't want to say that there's an issue that's more important than economy and jobs, whereas when you've got inflation listed, you can say that there's a more important issue than that. But, once again...
Look, we're just giving you the information. You guys decide.
Yeah, you work it out.
So, another thing that was very messy.
Yes.
The network polls, only 53% trusted Democrats more to handle the issue of abortion versus 42% who trusted Republicans more. So it suggested that abortion, even if it was a big issue, wasn't an overwhelming issue.
It's not an exclusively Democratic issue.
Yeah.
This is another thing that keeps getting misunderstood. Just because it favours Democrats overall, within that 27%, there's a lot of people for whom it's their most important issue because they believe that abortion is murder and that it needs to be completely outlawed across the country.
Yeah, but let me tell you, the result which made me think, okay, here we go.
All right.
Network exit polls had found 60% said abortion should be legal in all or most cases. AP Votecast, 59%. Abortion should be legal in all or most cases.
Yep.
Network polls, 73% of those people, of those 60%, voted Democrat.
Yep.
In the AP, 65% of those people voted Democrat. So that's a big issue for Democrats.
It is.
Okay? So that suggests it did play a positive role. And then there's a state results, which you hinted at, which you mentioned without saying the numbers. I'll say the numbers.
Yes.
45% of Michigan voters in the exit poll said that abortion was the top issue driving their vote.
Yep.
45%. Obviously, we're going to get to the abortion measure they had on their ballot, which is part of that. Whitmer won 80% of the voters who said that abortion should remain legal.
Yeah.
That's in Michigan. In Arizona, the main issues were inflation 36%, abortion 32%, even closer. And 77% of those who said it should be legal in all or most cases voted Democrat. In Pennsylvania, abortion was the main issue. 37%, inflation 28%, miles behind. And Democrats won 76% of those who said it should be legal in all or most cases. So despite the messiness of the exit polls, and they are very messy, I think there is a path through there to confirm what you're saying.
Absolutely, yes.
And it would suggest to me that we're going to see a lot more states with abortion on the ballot in 2024.
And I think that
one
of the things that this does is it explains the unusual behaviour of independents in this election. So independents, according to exit polls, are basically split evenly between Republicans and Democrats, whereas at just about any other midterm election you could imagine, with the exception of 2002, they go against the president's party.
Yes.
Now, this is an issue where we are seeing time and time again this number, 59%, 60%, this is the pro-abortion majority in America. Well, this pro-abortion legality majority in America. Within that 60%, people would have different ideas about the various rules around abortion. But when the alternative so often seems to be legal or illegal because of the positions that Republicans are staking out, that's that 60%. That 60%, that's obviously not just the left. That's not just Democrats. That's not just liberals. That includes a lot of conservatives. And so when looking to explain the behaviour of independents in that election, I think there's a lot of independents for whom, when they don't particularly like either party very much, that's going to be an issue which can actually turn it for them.
Well, let me pick up off that, because my number one takeaway from the messages from the election, where we saw endless polls. I cited endless polls about people feeling like the country's on the wrong track, thinking the economy's terrible, thinking everything's horrible, and going, well, they're not going to do too well in that environment. Well, what came out of the exit polls loud and clear is that they do hate the direction of the country. But that doesn't mean they don't vote Democrat.
That's right.
So let me give you some of the numbers.
The
network exit polls. Feeling about the way things are going in America. 34% angry, 39% dissatisfied, and 20% satisfied, 5% enthusiastic. So 73% were dissatisfied or angry and 5% were enthusiastic. But out of the 39% who are dissatisfied with how things are going in America,
Yeah.
they voted Republican 50 to 48.
Yes.
They split evenly.
That is incredible.
Yes.
That is actually really, really incredible.
Yeah, and let me give you more incredible, because that's not
Yes.
the only one. Let's talk about the people who say the economy is not so good.
Yeah.
AP Votecast said 44% of people said the economy was not so good. They support Democrats 53 to 42.
Wow.
Network exit polls, they had 38% of people saying the economy is not so good. They support Democrats 62 to 35.
Yeah.
That's 76% in total
Yeah.
said the economy was not so good or poor.
Yes.
And they only, when you combine all the negatives,
Yes.
they voted Republican 62 to 36.
That
it was
is
far from a smashing on the
Amazing.
economy.
Yeah. And look, a lot of people say that the country's bad, is going in the wrong direction, but they still blame Republicans significantly for
Well,
that.
either they think Republicans aren't going to fix it,
Yeah, yeah.
or they don't blame the Democrats for it being bad.
Yes.
One of the two.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. As an aside, by the way,
Yeah.
when I looked up how they split for the ones who said the economy was excellent,
Yes.
there was no partisan result because they didn't have enough data.
Yeah.
Because no one thinks the economy
Yeah.
is excellent. Now,
And,
go.
just a couple of things about the ramifications for 2024
Yeah.
here. One is Republicans won't be able to rely on things being in the shitter to win in 2024. If they couldn't win, I mean, they are technically going to win in the House, I imagine. But if they couldn't have the kind of proper victory
Against unified government.
in 2022, based on the condition of the country, they're not going to get it in 2024. Something I think that we need to very quickly mention, because I don't think we've got it anywhere else, is Democrats will face a very tough Senate battle in 2024.
They will, because they've got at least Joe Manchin
Yep.
and the Montana guy. What's his name? Tester. John Tester.
Yeah, John Tester.
Yeah, and they're not going to win either of them. I don't
No,
think.
and I think they have to defend something like 27 seats.
Yeah.
It's the rerun of 2018.
Yeah,
So
but in particular, they're down 2 before they begin because of Manchin and Tester.
yeah.
So
Yeah, like you could almost predict at this point that Democrats are going to lose the Senate in 2024, even if they win both the House of Representatives and the White House.
But for those wondering, well, what about their pickups? From memory, I haven't looked this up completely recently, but off my memory from ages ago, their best chance of a pickup in 2024 is Florida. So good luck.
Yes.
Just a little bit more on this, because I think this is a critical little area.
Yeah.
This was not an exit poll. This was a poll that dropped just before the election. But I think it's worth recalling at this point in time. From Public Opinion Strategies on the eve of the election, 47% were more concerned that the Republicans will take control of Congress and make the wrong kinds of changes versus 45% who are more concerned that Democrats would continue to control Congress and not make enough change.
Right. Yeah.
Which was interesting.
Yes.
That was auspicious given what we're seeing
Are
here.
you saying that maybe Kevin McCarthy shouldn't have started babbling about Social Security and Medicare and all those other things
probably didn't help.
that terrify the majority of American voters about Republicans?
Although I was surprised the Democrats didn't go harder on that. They mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah.
But they chose to do the democracy thing.
Fetterman mentioned it in the debate, and
he tried to.
mocked him for it
because
he wasn't talking about the thing that they were supposed to be talking about at that point.
Well, to be fair, I'm not sure he made the point crystal clear. but anyway.
I think he's actually the model for how Democrats should debate. Just whatever the question is, just say, you want to cancel Social Security.
You're rich. Anyway, I want to go through the persuadables in general.
Yeah.
Because this is really interesting. Independence. According to AP Votecast, it was the Democrats won independence by 4.
Oh, really? That much?
Yeah, they won independence by 4. According to network exit polls, Democrats won independence by 2. So both of them agreed on that.
Yeah.
Okay? And note, the opposition party has won independence by double digits in each of the last 4 midterm elections.
Yes.
That's incredibly unusual.
Yeah. To once again make the point that this is technically not a victory for Democrats, but there's a reason why Democrats are treating this as a victory and Republicans are treating it as a loss.
Moderates. Network exit polls. Democrats won moderates 56 to 41 by 15. AP had them winning by 15 as well, 54 to 39. People saying their vote's not about Biden. So this gets rid of the really partisan people on either side. Network polls, 19% said their vote was to support Biden. 32% said it was to oppose Biden. 47% said Biden wasn't a factor in their vote. They support Democrats, 60 to 37.
Yeah.
People saying Biden's policies make no difference. 33% say Biden's policies help. 47% say they hurt. 18% said they make no difference.
Yep.
They vote Democrat. 71 to 26. And this is the one I've talked about before, the somewhat disapprovers.
Yes.
People who say they somewhat disapprove of Biden. They went for the Democrats by 4 points, even though they said they somewhat disapprove of Biden. Since 2006, the President's Party has lost this group by 20 points or more in every midterm. About 2/3 of the somewhat disapproves of both Trump in 2018 and Barack Obama in 2010 voted against their party. No Republican Senate candidate in 2018 and a 2018 competitive race carried more than 8% of the voters who disapproved of Trump.
Wow.
Mark Kelly and Fetterman both carried 15% of the disapprovers, the total disapprovers, and Maggie Hassan carried 20% of them. No surprise when you look who they're running against.
Yes.
Oz and Masters
Yeah.
and Bolduc.
Look, Mitch McConnell was right about candidate quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go. So so that's my major takeaway.
Yep.
That they didn't like the Democrats, but they
Yes.
didn't like the Republicans more.
Absolutely.
So yeah, another thing which I do you have another takeaway? You
No.
want? Okay, another takeaway I've got here is that while the front lines are super calcified and becoming more calcified all the time, and what I refer to that is that we had over 70% of America saying they're on the wrong track.
Yes.
There wasn't a single incumbent flipped in the Senate or in the governorship.
Yep.
Not one.
Yes.
From either side.
Yeah.
Despite the fact everyone's saying we're on the wrong track.
Yeah.
Which is extremely unusual.
Yeah.
But despite that, despite those calcified front lines, it's not 100% partisan yet. There's so much ticket splitting.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you have a
Huge
look
amount.
here,
Yeah.
there were New Hampshire, Georgia, Wisconsin, probably Arizona and Nevada. That's 5 of the 9 key states where one party won the governorship and one party won the Senate. That's amazing.
It
You
is.
haven't seen anything like that for decades.
Yes.
And some of those gaps, New Hampshire, and this goes to what we were saying before, New Hampshire, there was a 25-point gap between the Senate result and the governor's result.
Yes. Yeah.
With Bolduc, obviously. Ohio, our old mate J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
19-point differential between the Senate and the governor's result.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, 10-point differential. And Oz was not a strong candidate, but Mastriano was a much weaker
really
candidate.
weak candidate. Yeah.
Georgia, 9-point differential between Senate and governorship. Colorado, 5-point differential. Wisconsin, 4.5-point with differential. Arizona, 4.5-point differential. So
Interestingly, this all kind of accords with like Biden's vision of politics.
it does.
That, Republicans, most of them are very reasonable, or at least a lot of them are very reasonable, and that they can be separated from Trump. And that's often derided as a fantasy, often by me.
Don't tell me he's vindicated again.
Well, no, I think it's too early to tell whether he's vindicated, but he will definitely be interpreting this as vindication of his entire strategy the whole way through.
What I will say, and there's nothing in the exit polls to support this, but just something that occurs to me, something just to watch.
Yep.
Is that COVID wasn't talked much about during this election.
No.
Except for by 2 people, DeSantis and Kemp.
Absolutely, yes.
Who both pissed it in.
Yep.
And now Whitmer didn't talk about COVID much, but she's associated with COVID, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And she did really well as well.
Yes.
So I'm not sure that there's a takeaway on where COVID is at in American polling, whether who it advantages, who it doesn't advantage. It might be different people in different places.
I don't think there's a uniform answer to that at all.
But it's just interesting how that worked out.
Yeah. I'd also say this is going to be a note of caution about extremely successful governors because obviously, and we're not going to talk about it today, but DeSantis is now being talked up a lot as presidential candidate. On the other side, Gretchen Whitmer is being talked up a lot as a future leader of the party because she won by 12 points. Both of them have benefited hugely from the electorate's understanding of their handling of COVID within the state, even though they had very different approaches. And I think that you do need to be very careful when looking at governors racking up massive victories in their home states, that may or may not translate outside of their home states. For every Bill Clinton, there's a Jeb Bush. There's... I think it's really hard to predict that because this person did very well in their state that they're going to do well outside it, especially when you have the sort of contrast between Whitmer and DeSantis.
Yeah. Well, why don't we, especially in this period where people are playing so hard to their base?
Yes.
Like in another era, governors were trying to appeal to everyone.
Yeah.
Now they're not so much trying to appeal to the other side. At least some aren't.
Yeah.
Like in Colorado they are, but in Michigan and Florida. Well, why don't you keep on going on that path? Because the next question is what's changed in America after this? And one of the things that people are talking about is, wow, Florida is the new capital of red states. There's a lot of this kind of talk, and I know you've got theories on this.
I think Florida is getting redder, and it's been getting redder since 2016. I don't think that a Republican presidential candidate, unless it's DeSantis, will replicate that performance in Florida. Governors often rack up much bigger margins than you would ever see a presidential candidate racking up. Having said that, it is clear that Florida is getting redder. That Trump and DeSantis have both tapped into conservative currents there, which maybe previous Republicans weren't able to tap into. DeSantis got 57% of the Latino vote, which I don't think any Republican has ever done before in
maybe Jeb Bush,
Florida. Would have to look that up.
I don't know.
Certainly he was. Yeah, it might be since Jeb Bush.
I know he did pretty well.
He got he won Miami-Dade County, which no Republican had done since Jeb Bush. Now that's not all going to be right-wing Cubans either. Like he's clearly got an appeal that goes beyond that.
I mentioned this on the other night. The exit polls, he got a majority of other Hispanics and Puerto Ricans. Puerto Ricans are notoriously left.
Yes.
So,
So he the way that he's being able to perform in Florida is a lot better than, as I say, unless it's him, any Republican presidential candidate. But Florida is getting redder, and DeSantis has really managed to lock it down. The other two states that are really important in this regard, one that often gets overlooked, Iowa. Yeah. Iowa has clearly moved from the purple column into the red column, and every election since 2016 has reaffirmed that. Iowa, in 2018, it was Iowa, Ohio, and Florida that all went against the national trend. That they are sticking very, very red. Ohio, I don't think, got any redder this time around.
Dems pinched some seats there.
They actually did manage to get some seats. And it was really interesting how much discourse there was around Tim Ryan.
Yeah.
You know, maybe this is the future of the Democratic Party. This guy who goes against the National Democratic Party on some pretty significant issues and downplays all of these social justice issues and instead talks like a good old-fashioned traditional Democrat. He ended up losing in Ohio against a pretty weak candidate.
But not by much, 6 points.
By as much as any... Can we pause it for a second?
For those wondering, Dave just got a spam call from Amazon. That's why we paused just then, in case you're wondering.
Yes,
it's a very important spam call. Let's continue.
Sorry, I don't like always really excitedly answer the phone every time it rings. There's just a certain call that I'm expecting that's related to something that's actually important.
I just included you actually just saying, can we pause, just so we could have this moment where we can reflect on what we paused for.
Hi, this is Amazon.
Sorry. Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
JD Vance, not a strong candidate.
Not a strong candidate. Okay, I'm not like Ryan probably did overperform a little bit, but
there's certainly 538 suggesting that the Democrats won those seats because of Ryan.
Right.
That's what they're suggesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Who knows? But
I would suggest that this does not warrant future of the Democratic Party status. And the fact is he still lost by quite a big margin there.
Well, yeah, he had the opportunity to be the future of the Democratic Party 2 years ago.
Oh, yes.
And
yeah.
And he lasted one debate.
Was he, the fourth to drop out?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Actually, no, he might have made a second debate. Let's be fair.
Yeah. I think actually one of the takeaways from this is there is no unified future of the Democratic Party. There are a lot of potential paths, and the Ryan path is one of them, but it is not the only path. It won't work in all parts of the country, and when you get right down to it, it didn't actually work in Ohio. It's just that we've become so accustomed to Democrats losing by 8 points in Ohio that when someone loses by 6.5, you go, oh, well.
Let me read you a tweet from Nate Silver.
Okay.
This is not truth. This is a tweet.
A tweet, yes.
And get your reaction to this. Quote, I've said this before, but I think Democrats are sometimes too quick to brush off Florida, e.g., oh, it's a red state now, or it's in the South and it's always been a red state. By its demographics, it shouldn't be a red state. It's ethnically and racially diverse. It's coastal and it's urban. It really speaks to the limitations of the current Democratic coalition. What do you have to say to that?
Look, I agree with him that it's not, a deep red state, and the fact that it's in the South doesn't make it one because it's the least southern state in the South. In VOK's classic Southern Politics in State and Nation, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, the title of the chapter on Florida is Florida is Different. This is written in 1949. And it's always been different because of the very unique demographics of the state. Prior to 2016, it was, perennially the closest state. Having said that, as I said, Trump and DeSantis have tapped into some things there that previous generations of Republicans did not. That it's going to be quite hard for Democrats to overcome that. I'm not saying that it's going to be a red state forever, and Democrats certainly should not give up on it because it's the third biggest state in the country now. Yeah. It's not going to get any smaller. Given that Texas is still a pretty reliably Republican state, it's been a rake to the nose for Democrats for years now. And given that they've lost, they seem to have lost Iowa as a red state. And North Carolina, even though at the state level it is very, very purple, at things like the senatorial level, just election after election, it seems to promise the tantalizing possibility of a flip, but it never happens. Yeah, so given how many sort of states there are where Republicans just keep getting these victories, you can't just afford to write them all off. And they certainly can't afford to write Florida off because if Republicans permanently have Florida and Texas, that more than makes up for the disadvantage of permanently not having California.
Sure.
So, no, they can't write it off. They've got to figure out a way to get it back, but I'm not sure what that is. And the Nate Silver tweet didn't really suggest what the solution was. It just nominated what the problem was.
Yeah. I'll just say a couple of other things about Florida, which is, first of all, something I found interesting is that DeSantis, it's not like DeSantis tries to reach out. DeSantis runs hard to the right.
Yes.
Like if you looked at his celebration speech, it couldn't have been more red meat for Reds. I'll just play a bit here.
We have embraced freedom. We have maintained law and order. We have protected the rights of parents. We have respected our taxpayers, and we reject woke ideology. We fight the woke in the legislature. We fight the woke in the schools. We fight the woke in the corporations. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Florida is where woke goes to die.
To be fair, I think Florida is where everyone goes to die, not just woke.
Yeah.
That's
right. But we should also, we shouldn't go through this without mentioning he's had a major voter intimidation effort in the lead up to this election. He's had his electoral fraud squad, which has made all these incredibly confusing arrests. None of those are going to result in convictions because it's, the way that it was done was also haphazard and flimsy. But to do that right before the election, that probably intimidated a lot of people out of voting. I'm not saying that he, didn't win by a very large margin. He obviously did, and that would have happened even without that. But we've been saying that in the rest of the country, Democratic turnout was very high, hence high overall turnout.
Yeah.
Not in Florida.
Yeah.
In Florida, Democratic turnout was very low.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, the other factor in that is
Charlie Crist.
Charlie Crist. Democrats are basically suppressing their own vote by their choice of primary candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can take that further.
Yes.
Because this is what I was going
Take
to
it
say.
further, Chase.
Yeah, which is that the Democrats have really dropped the ball in Florida in a big way for a long time. They lost 331,000 registered voters in Florida just in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
This was the first time in history the Republicans had a registration advantage over the Democrats in Florida.
Yep.
First time in history. In 2008, Democrats had a 700,000 voter lead.
Yes.
And they've just gradually been shedding them more and more and more. And I don't know if there's a feedback loop going on or what, but but if you look at the spending, the Democrats the Democrat group spent $58 million in Florida in 2018.
Yep.
They spent $1.4 million this year. So and DeSantis had like a $200 million war chest.
Yes.
So what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying that they would have won had they spent more, but they wouldn't have lost by 20.
No.
Like if they'd actually run against him.
Yes.
It's
funny. I saw a headline on Election Day saying, "It looks like DeSantis will survive the challenge from Charlie Crist." Survive the challenge.
Could have written that 9 months ago.
Wow.
But also on top of that, like friend of the podcast and friend of me in real life, Richard Cook,
Yeah.
when he was in America, if you recall, he spent some time in Florida.
Yes. Yep.
And he was talking about how the Democrats were particularly bad. How he would go to electorate offices.
Yes.
There'd be no one there.
Yeah.
He'd call them up. No one would reply.
Yes.
He just couldn't get in touch with anyone.
Yeah.
He couldn't find when campaign rallies were. He was trying to cover them.
Yeah.
And it was impossible to because there were no websites and there was no workers and there
Yeah.
was no coverage anywhere. And so he couldn't understand why they got one vote.
Yeah.
And that was in 2020. And from what I can see, they're even worse now than they were then.
Yeah.
So they seem to have serious organizational problems.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's not me taking anything away from DeSantis. It's just me saying that I think the Democrats have themselves to blame for at least a reasonable proportion of that result.
Yes, absolutely.
I would say.
Yes.
Yeah. We were talking things have changed. There hasn't been much that changed because a lot of incumbents, or every incumbent survived.
Yeah.
A few firsts I'll just go through quickly. First generation Z congressional rep, 25-year-old Maxwell Frost.
In Florida.
In depth.
Congratulations.
There you go. First lesbian governor in Massachusetts. First lesbian governor. In Massachusetts, it was Maura Healey. Tina Kotek looks like she might join her from Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Third
I
black.
think that one's been called.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Okay, this I'm out behind.
Yep.
Third black governor in history in Maryland was Wes Moore, and the Democrats seem to like him a lot. I didn't see much of him, but
Yep.
I'm getting the vibe they're thinking that he might
Well,
one day
both
move
military
forward.
background and Rhodes Scholar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't comment on that because I just haven't seen much of him. But I heard a lot of. I saw on Twitter a lot of Democrat workers going, "Where's more?
Yeah.
Where's more?"
Yeah.
But okay, all right. And didn't get a lot of credit for it, but yeah, we should mention it. Dr. Oz, first Muslim candidate ever for the Senate. First Muslim nominee for a major party. Dr. Oz.
Really?
Yeah, really. Yes, I know.
Okay.
I know. I thought the same thing. I thought, hey, really? But yeah, really. I thought, well, how about Ellison? No, he didn't go for the Senate.
That's who I was thinking of.
yeah.
I know, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Oz, not much of them. Not much of a. I mean,
He didn't make a lot of it.
no. wasn't wearing it on his sleeves. But okay.
But, you know,
Yeah.
that was a first. It's interesting. The other thing which I thought about in terms of changing is I'm seeing more regional variation than I used to see. I mean, obviously there's blue states and red states, but just in terms of like different waves in different parts of the country.
Yes.
Like the fact there seemed to be a red wave in Florida and North Carolina, I guess, to a certain extent. And there was a blue wave in Michigan and Colorado.
Yeah.
Like that's an interesting direction we haven't seen much of before. Like
Yeah.
usually.
Although, as I say, I think 2018 and 2020 to some extent, you did see these waves going in different directions as well. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the Democratic tactics. We've already talked about abortion, the abortion first thing. Because there was a lot of Monday quarterbacking happening on Friday.
Yes, yeah.
Before the game. And so we've got the abortion thing. Let's talk about the democracy on the ballot thing.
Yeah.
Which was the last week.
Yes, yeah.
What are your thoughts on that in hindsight?
I'm still not sure how many marginal votes that possibly could have got. I mean, I'm not sure how many people were there who really believed this democracy is on the ballot message, who weren't already voting and who weren't already voting Democratic. Different from abortion. Abortion, I think, actually would have got marginal voters over to the Democrats. I think that the people who would have been motivated by that were voting anyway, would be my suspicion. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Well, it's funny you mention that.
Yeah.
Because we spoke to Celinda Lake on Planet America, who's a Democrat pollster, worked for Biden, thinks she might still work for Biden.
Yeah.
And I asked her outright, why did you change your message to the democracy thing in the last week, and why didn't you make it about Social Security? And she said, I thought we should have talked about Social Security more, but that's a persuasive issue. You don't do persuasive issues in the last week. You do them months out.
Get them out. Yeah.
The last week you're trying to mobilize the base. And she said, and the democracy message was targeted at young voters to try and get them out.
Okay, yeah.
Which was interesting. She said the democracy message doesn't really resonate with older voters, but it resonates with younger voters.
Yeah, reasonable point. Okay.
Which was interesting because I then look at the network exit polls and I see that 65 pluses, R plus 12, 45 to 64s, R plus 10, 30 to 44s, D plus 4, and 18 to 29s, D plus 28. So you can see why they wanted to get them out. In terms of...
By the way, okay, so remember that bizarre poll that had Gen X going Republican by 20 points?
I do remember that. You
over 65s as dead even?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that one was an outlier.
I think it might have been hindsight.
So sorry to Megan McArdle for wasting an entire column on trying to analyse that in generational terms.
That's a shame because I was feeling really Trumpy after that. As the resident Generation Xer of this podcast, I wanted to stop the steal for a little while there. Anyway, I should say, by the way, before we celebrate the D plus 28 of 18 and 29 too much, this is the kind of thing you're going to get from this podcast. I'm going to tell you the stuff that undermines my own theses.
Okay.
AP Votecast, D plus 11 for 18 to 29. So what's the case? I don't know. Just telling you I can read. I do know this, though.
Yes.
And the network exit polls, confident that your state elections are fair or accurate.
Yep.
79% said yes.
Good. Yes.
61% said Biden legitimately won in 2020, and of them, 74% voted Democratic. So, there's something there. But they didn't ask about democracy in the issue polls. No. So we just don't know. Neither of them did.
That point about confidence in your own state election, I think, is really important because I think even a lot of 2020 election deniers at a national level would say that their own state election was fine.
Yep.
This time around, there was a lot of reporting on the ways that poll workers were trying to prevent any undermining of confidence, that they were engaging in de-escalation, early interventions in skepticism. I mean, I think this is what you have got to do. It'll be very tempting to just say a lot of these election deniers, they come here to make trouble. Because in 2020, a lot of them clearly did. A lot of them showed up to that Tacobo Hall in Detroit with basically the express intention of making trouble. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who turn up with misguided but genuine concerns. And it does appear that election workers, by explaining procedures to them, explaining things that might look suspicious, like why was that stack of ballots moved from one table to another, were actually able to allay a lot of people's concerns. And I think it is worth mentioning that these elections depend on tens of thousands of these workers being able to do their jobs properly. And I think this time around, they did restore a bit of confidence, I hope.
Yeah, well, we talked about this, that Jocelyn Benson, the Michigan Secretary of State, said that it was her hope and belief that when Stop the Stealers actually become part of the system and actually get a job and work there and see firsthand what they do, it might convince them otherwise. Yes. And hopefully that's been what's happened. I should say, before we go on about how the election deniers went, that I do want to just once again say I really don't like the way this issue, even if it worked, it worked to get the kids out. Yes. I don't like the way it was shamelessly politicised. And I'm citing in particular stuff like MSNBC with their 6 days to save democracy banner. Like that kind of stuff I don't like, because this is a real issue. It's a genuine issue. It's not bullshit. It's not, like, in my view, it's not bullshit. It's something to actually be worried about. And if we have gotten past it, then that's wonderful. Yes. But we shouldn't be screwing around with it and potentially risking people thinking it's just politicised piffle. Right. And which they did, but they might have got away with it. So fine. All right, let's talk about the election deniers, how they actually went, because that's the best proof of all. Yes, Tony Evers beat Tim Michels out. Yep. That was a big deal in Wisconsin because, as I said, Tim Michaels, wanted to get rid of the Wisconsin Elections Commission, which is the best thing in America, and I wish the rest of them would. Best thing in America! As far as elections go, I wish everyone else would mould themselves on that. Yeah. Gretchen Whitmer beat Tudor Dixon, and Jocelyn Benson won the Secretary of State in Michigan as well. Masters and Fincham look like they're going down in Arizona. Yep. By 5 points so far. Zeldin, Bailey, Cox, Mastriano, these are all governors who went down, who all stopped the Steelers. Yeah. Basically, the only one who looks like the entire bunch who looks like they're going to survive, maybe, is Carrie Lake. Yes. But we'll see. And that's not a surprise because she's the most talented of them. Yeah. But if she does, it's by the skin of her teeth. Yeah,
it's looking like a real 50-50 proposition.
So, then, meanwhile, Raffensperger and Kemp, they smashed it in.
Romped it in.
Yeah, no problems. And in fact, I would argue it might have even helped them because they had to reach across the aisle to refine their message because they knew they were going to lose their fringe. And it worked, And then, and also look at the people on the same ballot, Kemp and Walker on the same ballot. One's a denier, one's not. Yeah. Look at DeWine and Vance on the same ballot. Look at Sununu and Bolduc on the same ballot. They're the three biggest gaps. Yes. The three biggest gaps in terms of ticket splitting. Then there's the Secretary of States, who are the ones who count the most because they're the ones who administer the elections. And what are they called? The America First Coalition? Yes. Of 6 Secretary of States who are all hardcore. I think the Indiana one got through. Doesn't matter because they never have to do anything.
Congratulations, Indiana.
But all the ones who have any chance of causing any damage, looks like they've all gone. Every single one of them. Like Arizona, he's gone. Wisconsin's gone. Michigan's gone. The Pennsylvania governor picks a Secretary of State. Yep. So sorry, Mastriano. Yes. Raffensperger in Georgia obviously won. Yes. That's 5 of the 6 battlegrounds right there. Yes, yeah. Jim Marchant is the last one in Nevada, and at the moment he's looking kind of gone.
Yeah, because he's behind, and that's in a red mirage state. Yeah. That vote is only going to get bluer.
I mean, we'll see about that because that's not called. But how far behind? He's 2 points behind at the moment.
Yeah, 2 points behind.
And there's a blue tail coming.
It would have to be something pretty extraordinary.
So that's good. And most of them are conceded as well, which is surprising.
They did.
Audrey Trio from New Mexico, she didn't concede, even though she lost by 12 points. See ya, Audrey. And after all of that, there are 2 January 6 attendees who are actually going to end up in Congress. Yeah. There's one from New York, of all places, George Santos. And there's one from Wisconsin, Derek Van Orden. So welcome, guys, but you're going to be lonely, which is great. The other Democrat strategy, which I bashed a lot, was the boost the psychos strategy.
Oh, yeah. I hated that strategy.
You hate that as well?
I complained about that in multiple media outlets.
Good. Well, I hate it as well, but it worked.
I know. Yeah, I've got to say, that one worked.
Which is a shame.
I mean, the thing is, their theory was correct.
It was. They spent $53 million boosting Trump-aligned candidates in 13 races in 9 states. Of those 13, 6 won their primaries. Mm-hmm. Of those 6, 0 won. Yeah. The most blatant example was Darren Bailey. They spent $34 million in that primary backing him. Yeah. He ended up beating Richard Irwin, who would have been the first black governor of Illinois and was a moderate. Yeah. Nice one, guys. And but Darren Bailey got absolutely blown out of the water.
Yeah.
And Peter Meyer was another one people talk about, who was one of the 10 Republicans.
One that I talked about a lot, yeah.
One of the 10 Republicans to impeach Trump.
Yeah.
You'd think you would encourage that kind of Republican.
Yeah.
But no, he had a super close contest and they got rid of him.
Yep.
And they got in Gibbs, who was a goose, and he lost as well. So,
Yes.
yes, it worked for them in that they won all those races. But honestly, they got lucky it wasn't a wave because some of those were close.
Yes. Yeah.
And that would have been extremely annoying.
Yeah.
If they lost. And yeah, you know what? Some things are more important than one seat as well. Like Meyer,
Yeah.
you should be encouraging him to stay. Like, yeah, it's the first black governor of Illinois. Fuck off, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, that's what I thought certainly about Meyer, but
It's,
but I mean, their response would be, we were just showing people the true face of the Republican Party, and that one of the reasons why this did not end up being a red wave was because that true face was so prominent. I think that's what their response would be. Is we actually, it's not that, oh, well, what would have happened if there'd been a wave? They would say, we stopped the wave.
And the other thing they also say, I think somewhat disingenuously, is that we never said a positive thing about these people.
That's true.
We said we were bashing them. We were bashing them for being too conservative. Yes, we knew the effect that would have.
Yeah.
But we were bashing them for being too conservative. And the bottom line is, their people voted for them.
Yep.
It's not like they didn't know we were Democrats.
Yes.
We weren't pretending we weren't Democrats. So, anyway, and the last thing I'd say about Democrats before we go off into Republicans is this was a big pre-talking point,
Yes.
which I'm not sure has been disproven. It's from Rai Taxera, who people know as the guy who's responsible as anyone for implanting the idea in the Democrats 20 years ago that they were going to win the inevitable demographic war.
Yes.
He disavowed that within like 4 years,
Yes,
but the rest of the Democrats kept on believing it. And, he wrote an article for The Atlantic, which I'm going to put in the homework. It's well worth reading. It's quite interesting. Basically suggesting that the Democrats have been on this path for a while of trading working class votes, and in particular, well, not in particular, but also non-white working class votes for white suburban educated votes for some time, and him suggesting that's not a good trade. He suggested, and this is really interesting, that this started with Hillary Clinton in 2016, that she made two fateful decisions. One, when she was facing a stiff challenge against Bernie Sanders, not going down, but she was being challenged by Bernie Sanders, she chose to not compete with him on the economy, but to compete with him on culture.
Yes.
And so she embraced identity politics as a way to say, well, yeah, sure, he's left, but he's kind of racist. Which was a way of working around him. And then when she won, she decided to, and that seemed to be working for her, she decided to back it, to double down on it and work against Trump's character rather than to embrace economics again.
Yes.
And those two things worked very well. They worked better than they thought they might in terms of bringing over educated white voters. And they thought, oh, this is nice. Yeah. And so they kept on going down that path. Yeah. Because they didn't start losing the other voters until a little bit later down the track.
Yes.
But what we're seeing since then is that this drop off on especially non-white working class voters. And when we talk about the Hispanic vote decreasing and the black vote decreasing, they're the ones. It's the working class ones, not the ones with degrees. That's what he's suggesting. Yeah. So now exit polls are so unsuited to this because they're so imprecise, and this is going to really find sliced salami pieces now. Yeah. But I'm going to try and stumble on. And
Chaz, I don't know about this. Not after what happened last week.
Okay, well, look, I don't need to. But, okay, I tell you what. I won't go into the really fine detail. But I will do this. I will say this at least. The Democrats carried Hispanic voters by 41 points in 2016. Yeah. They carried Hispanic voters by 35 points in 2018. Yeah. They carried Hispanic voters by 25 points in 2020. According to the network polls, exit polls, they carried them by 21 this time. According to AP, they carried them by 16. I won't go into the working class breakdown, although I have it. And all I would say as well is that the white college educated voters increased from 46 to 53% between 2016 and 2020 for Democrats. Yeah. Now they're 50%.
I'm going to pose a counter argument.
Go for it.
Which is one that I have made so many times before.
Yeah.
2004, George W. Bush got 44% of Latino voters. I actually don't think it's a matter of what Democrats do. It's a matter of what Republicans do.
Does that go for black voters too? Because they're also decreasing.
Black
men in particular.
Yeah, that's a separate issue, which I have not actually thought about very much. Yeah. But I just want to make the point that there was a real historical anomaly of how many Latino voters Barack Obama managed to pick up in 2008 and 2012. Could have had something to do with his opponents, who just seemed really, really unsuited to getting Latino voters. A lot of what we're seeing now is actually a return to historical norms, because there is a big pool of right of centre Latino voters there that Republicans are actually getting back into the fold. I think it has more to do with what Republicans are doing than with what Democrats are doing.
Maybe. Well, it's saying will certainly be watching over time.
This
because the inverted commas wokeness thing is not going to be going away anytime soon.
No.
So we'll see if that trend continues. Let's talk Republicans. What do you think about their tactics in hindsight? Like going big on crime, going big on inflation.
Yeah, look, they weren't the only ones who believed that inflation was going to work in their favour in this election. Yeah. I remember the reporter asked Biden a question over a year ago, like, do you think inflation's going to hurt you at the midterm elections? Yeah. And he said, no, it's going to help us. Like, you fucking idiot. Yeah, so everybody believed that inflation was going to hurt Democrats. So that doesn't seem like an immense tactical error that they were emphasising inflation. I didn't think that crime was going to be as pertinent for them as they seemed to think. But I can understand, why they pushed it. It's something that has worked for them so many times before, even though I don't think it worked this time around. I don't think it was about big messaging tactics in terms of actually pushing in the campaign. I think it was about things that they had actually done. It was about what those state legislatures had done as soon as Roe versus Wade was overturned. Even he who shall not be mentioned kind of responded with, shit, this could really cost us as an issue. But, what did the great drunk uncles of the state legislatures do? Went as hard as possible, as soon as possible. It was this orgy of celebration and punishment. And, people reacted to that. The other factor is the man who we're not going to talk about. Yeah. He and his constant claims about the 2020 election. Like it or not, that was the face of the Republican Party. So,
and his candidate selection as well.
Yes, yeah. Now, there are a lot of stories coming out. The Washington Post had a very long one about the conflict between the National Rick Scott Committee, as it often got nicknamed. That's the National Republican Senate Leadership Committee, and the SLF, Senate Leadership Fund, which is basically McConnell versus Rick Scott, how they were treating each other as enemies the whole way through. They weren't coordinating on funding at all. That might have had a lot to do with it, that sort of tactical stuff as well. But ultimately, I think the result was actually beyond the control of Republicans who were actually conducting the campaign.
Yeah, no, I don't think I disagree with you. Crime, I'm surprised how little effect we could see in the numbers, but economy is a no-brainer. Of course they're going to run on that. That's perfectly reasonable, but candidate selection, obviously a big deal. I'll tell you one thing they did that worked for them well, which was they didn't play fair with gerrymanders, that's for sure.
No.
Which is, I flagged New York before.
Yes.
If we have a look, let me just read you a tweet from Dave Wasserman, who's the champion of all this kind of stuff. Republicans wouldn't be slight favourites to win House control right now if they hadn't been able to gerrymander far more states than Democrats. And Democrats wouldn't hold the slight majority today if courts hadn't struck down GOP gerrymanders in Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Virginia in the last 7 years. Yeah. Which is interesting. But okay, so let's talk about New York quickly. So Cuomo, do you want to talk about that? Or?
No, you talk about
all right.
it. Yeah.
Cuomo tried to set up a dodgy system, surprise, a few years back, where he'd have a supposedly bipartisan commission drawing the districts. And it was designed to fail. There'll be equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats. And then if they didn't agree on the map, then it would go to the politicians to draw it, right? So, it was designed to fail, and it failed. And then went to the politicians, and then they drew the most absurdly gerrymandered map imaginable. They got very greedy. And I think there was, from memory, it was like 3 out of 25 Republican seats or something in the whole New York. It was just insane. So
it was a disgrace.
Yeah, it was
a real disgrace.
It went to court, and then the court said no.
Yes,
and
that's exactly how they said it as well.
So yeah, with a little lilt, and they sent off to a special master who are now all familiar with the concept of a special master. They sent off to a special master to draw up a fair map, and it was a fair map, but it wasn't a fair map that suited the Democrats at all.
No.
And as a result of that, Democrats have lost at least 5 and possibly 6 seats.
This is basically where they've lost the House.
So Maloney, he was one of those seats. Now, mind you, Democrats haven't helped themselves because they all ran around like panicked chooks. And they all parachuted out of their mildly competitive seats as soon as they possibly could. So in a lot of those competitive seats, there were nobodies where there used to be somebodies. So that was part of the problem as well.
So I think all 4 of the Long Island seats went Republican.
And I said it may even be more, but at this point in time, it's looking 5 or 6. Meanwhile, DeSantis had one hell of a gerrymander going down in Florida, which was allowed. And that one
3.
That one, I think it's 4, to be honest.
Wow. Okay.
4. Yeah, that one 4. Then as well, there were racial gerrymanders. Also there was Maryland did the same thing. They tried the gerrymander, and the court struck it down and redrew, and they lost a seat as a result of that. Meanwhile, there were racial gerrymanders in Louisiana and Alabama that the Supreme Court allowed because of the Milligan case we've discussed before. So that's 1 seat each that the Republicans got there. And there were potential other seats in Texas and Georgia and South Carolina, but let's not count them. At the very least, we're looking at 12 seats. 11 to 12 seats that Republicans have got purely from gerrymander politics, which is definitely more than the margin at this point in time.
Absolutely, yes.
So, well done, Supreme Court.
Yes. Because I think we're going to run out of time, I'm going to take this opportunity to do a Michigan Corner.
It's the Michigan Corner.
This was a very significant election
Yes.
for the state of Michigan, not just because of Gretchen Whitmer's double-digit win, but because it looks like, at this point, Democrats are also going to get the House and the Senate.
Yes, the trifecta.
In Michigan. So they have turned Michigan into a Democratic trifecta state. Michigan is not an overwhelmingly blue state by any means, but this is what Democrats have actually managed to do. That is incredibly significant in 2024. They could also flip legislatures in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin.
I just want to say they've already got extra trifectas from Minnesota and Maryland as well. So that's 3 trifectas. But also, no, they're not going to flip Wisconsin. But what they are going to do is because that's so gerrymandered, they could never win. They have stopped a supermajority in Wisconsin.
Absolutely, yes.
Which is very important.
Stopped a supermajority in Wisconsin and also in North Carolina.
Yes, also in North Carolina.
And they could flip Arizona.
They could flip Arizona. They could flip Nevada, and they have flipped one house in Pennsylvania, but not the other one.
Now, this is all incredibly significant when we bear in mind that the Supreme Court is currently hearing this case that could give a lot of power to state legislatures. When it comes to election administration. I've never seen Democrats take state, House and Senate races so seriously. There was a Democratic PAC that was devoted to it that poured millions of dollars into these races. This is what Democrats need to do because so much of the story of the last 20 or 30 years is Democrats winning the popular vote at the national level, not even getting the presidency out of it in some cases, and just losing everything at the state level. They need to get state level wins back in order to deny Republicans control of elections. But getting back to Michigan, one of the reasons why this has been possible is because Michigan now has an independent election body that has been undoing decades of Republican gerrymandering in the state. Republicans were racking up state and Senate wins there without having anything close to a majority of the popular vote in the state. that has now actually been rectified. And yeah, this tells you why Tim Michaels was so eager to get rid of it in Wisconsin.
And it's also is a reason why Gretchen Whitmer is going to be well positioned for higher office, even though I personally am not a big fan of hers. I should say that she's in a good position because basically the Michigan House has been Republican for 40 years now.
Oh, yeah. It was certainly Republican the whole time I was there.
Yeah. And so there is a big backup of legislation that she can now pass.
Yes.
And so she's going to have a big record of achievement
Yes.
over the next few years because of this.
And by the way, okay, we did promise that we'd come back to ballot measures around abortion.
Oh, we are.
So, but I just want to mention, Michigan, the ballot measure enshrining protection of abortion. So that's a big one.
The only other thing I'd say about the state legislatures before we go to the propositions is, so it's now 17 trifectas to Democrats and 23 trifectas to Republicans for the counting. Republicans do have a supermajority in the Nebraska. Nebraska state legislature. Not that anyone cares, but I'm just telling you, that's their only real real get. Except for they've claimed the Supreme Court of North Carolina and Ohio. Which are, especially North Carolina, is important.
That's very important.
Because while they don't have a supermajority, and you might go, who cares about supermajority? North Carolina and Wisconsin, it's important the supermajority because both of them are very, very, very partisan gerrymandered.
And both of them have Democratic governors.
Yes. And Evers he had 126 vetoes over the last 2 years. And Roy Cooper, I think, he's been vetoing like crazy as well. And as soon as either of them go, the Supreme Court's going to be very relevant. And the North Carolina Supreme Court is the only reason they have even a vaguely fair map in Congress. Okay, so that's that. Let's talk about the propositions. So abortion.
There's a reason why abortion was such a major issue in Michigan, and that was, in Michigan, there was a threat that Republicans would reactivate a law that was over 100 years old, actually banning abortion. And this was a huge shock to people in the state. They had not considered abortion rights as something that were really under threat in Michigan, but it turned out that as soon as Roe versus Wade was overturned, it was. And the Republican-led legislature was, definitely threatening to implement that law. So that's one of the reasons it was so significant in Michigan. That, passed with 56.3% of the vote. That's in a state where there are a lot of social conservatives, even among people who lean pretty left economically. In fact, this is one of the characterizing things about Michigan politics. The other really notable one was Kentucky. And one of the things that's notable is Chaz is inadvertently right with his confusion of Kansas and Kentucky a few weeks ago. It just took a few weeks for reality to catch up.
Very good.
Kentucky, which at this point is a pretty red state, even though it often has Democratic governors, voted to reject a ballot measure which would say that there was no right to abortion in the state of Kentucky. Now, practically, that doesn't make a huge amount of difference because Kentucky bans abortions anyway since Roe. But nonetheless, that's a very important indicator of public opinion. What percentage of the vote went against that proposition?
It was 52% against, 48%.
Yeah. So not as overwhelming as Kansas, but nonetheless, it shows you that very solid pro-legality majority.
And it could be relevant because people are going to challenge the Kentucky laws now under their state constitutions. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. California, Vermont, and what was the other one?
Montana.
So California and Vermont, they enshrined the constitutional right.
Positive, like Michigan, and Montana they voted down a negative one.
Yes, So Montana's the really notable one out of those last three. California and Vermont, there were already a lot of protections for abortion in place. So that was all very significant. Once again, shows the staying power of this issue, shows the deep underlying pro-legality coalition.
some other propositions. I'll just race through them quickly. You can just jump in if you're interested in any of them.
Yep.
Slavery. 5 states voted to ban slavery. Well, 4 voted to ban slavery. 1 didn't.
Yeah, Louisiana.
Yeah, there is a little qualifier on that, though.
Yes, there is.
The 13th Amendment says that America shall permit neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. So prisoners could be slaves.
Yeah.
And it was Alabama, Vermont, Tennessee, and Oregon all voted to ban slavery for prisoners, which is nice. They joined. There are 20 state constitutions already that do that, so they joined them. Louisiana did not, but they stuffed it up. The wording was just wrong.
Yeah.
Like the wording they had was to replace saying the state constitution's ban on slavery and involuntary servitude does not apply to the otherwise lawful administration of criminal justice. But so adding in does not apply to the otherwise lawful administration of criminal justice.
Yeah, that is
it does nothing.
Not how you
anyway.
word
So forget that. They'll come back to that.
Yep.
Marijuana, it got up. Marijuana legalization got up in Maryland and Missouri.
Yes.
Which it puts it up to 21 states now have it legal. North Dakota, South Dakota, and Arkansas said no to legalization. The annoying one there is South Dakota because they said yes in 2020.
Yeah.
But then Kristi Noem challenged it in court, said they violated the state's single subject rule. And the Supreme Court overturned it, so they had another go and only got 47% this time. So that's annoying. Yeah. Proposition 122 in Colorado got up. That's the one that decriminalized natural medicine, magic mushrooms. That's right. That got up. And healing centers. Nebraska and Nevada approved minimum wage hikes.
Yes.
Nebraska to $15, Nevada to $12. Health. The Arizona medical debt proposition absolutely pissed it in. 75% yes. That's the one where they put a cap on medical debt interest rates and limited property seizures for medical debt. So that's nice. So that could be a way forward.
Yes.
Expect to see that in other states.
Yes.
That's very popular. South Dakota expanded Medicaid, finally, to individuals earning 138% of the federal poverty level.
Yep.
At the moment, you need to be below 63% of the poverty line to get Medicaid in South Dakota, which isn't very nice. And if you don't have kids, you have no chance. So that extended it to 45,000 extra people. That leaves now, they've now had ballots on pretty much every state you can have a ballot for on this issue, except for Florida. So that's next. So it's New Mexico, they got up their pre-K proposition, which was to take 1% out of, was it 1.25% out of their sovereign wealth fund of $26 billion and put it into pre-K and childcare funding.
That's the sovereign wealth fund, by the way. That's oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that got up. So they're gonna have childcare and more childcare and pre-K. That's good. The one I'm interested in, which I think you're interested in as well, is the ranked choice one in Nevada.
Yes. Yeah.
For those who've been paying attention to Alaska, with their final 4, I think it is in Alaska.
Yeah.
They want to have a final 5 in Nevada, which is exactly the same thing. Open primary.
Yep. Top 5
go through to the election, and there's a ranked choice vote on those people, which is, I think, a good system.
Yep.
Now it got up
52%,
but they need in Nevada you need to win 2 ballots.
Right.
So they need to put it on 2024 as well. And it needs to get up as well before that happens in Nevada.
Yep.
And that's interesting. I didn't realize that there's one woman behind all of these. It's a woman called Catherine Gell, who was an ex-Republican Obama supporter.
Right.
She's inherited some food company and has hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh, okay. To throw out ranked choice voting.
Yeah, one of those ones.
Excellent.
That's what she's trying to push it. And she's trying to get on the ballot by 2024. The same system. This is her system.
Yes.
The final 5 system for California, Ohio, Arizona, Colorado, Michigan, Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming.
Yeah, go for it.
So let's see. That's exciting. You like to talk about cash bail. Ohio and Alabama brought in almost the opposite. They brought in a system where Ohio brought in a dangerousness standard to its bail laws, which say that when they set cash bail, they set it according to the person's criminal record, the seriousness of the alleged crime, and the odds of them appearing at court following pretrial release. So it shifts around not just because of the crime.
Yeah.
And that got up. Alabama is making it so you can't get cash bail if you commit a dangerous crime, but you just don't get released. So that's even worse. I should just say the New Jersey has the same system that Ohio has now about
Yeah.
the dangerousness,
Yeah.
except for it's to determine whether they don't have cash.
Yes.
Whether you get bail.
Yeah, yeah.
They just say, okay, if you're dangerous
Yeah.
and you've committed a bad crime, then
Yeah.
you don't get bail.
Yeah.
But if you commit a small crime
Yes.
and we don't think you're going to reoffend and we think you'll come back,
Yeah, yeah.
then we'll just let you go.
Yes.
You don't need to pay.
Yes.
Which I think is the best system. And you might note that while New York's had all kinds of problems with their cash bail system,
Yeah.
New Jersey's had very few.
Yes.
It's a good system.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the propositions. Okay, Dave, not much time left.
No.
Do you want to talk about, I know you want to talk about the new house. Do you want to talk about it now or next week? the
Let's
challenges
talk
was-
about it next week when we actually know what the margin is.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because
Fair
I
enough,
think because
okay.
there's still a bit of a range of possibilities there.
Okay.
It's going to be difficult for whoever the speaker is, but we're yet to see how difficult it's going to be.
That's fine. Okay, we'll talk about it. We'll put that on the table for next week.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the Sarah Amari
Yeah.
thing?
I
go
owe
for it.
an apology to Sarah Amari, who had a very interesting op-ed in the New York Times today.
We'll put in the homework. Have a
Why
look.
the red wave didn't happen. And he said it's because Republicans didn't back unions and workers' rights. And when they complain about corporations, they're only complaining about wokeness. And that's a very surface issue. The real issue is corporate power over people's economic lives. In other words, an op-ed that could have been written from the left. So the apology that I owe to Sohrab Ahmari, who is not from the left at all.
No.
Very much a new right thinker who actually 2 days before the election wrote a piece in the American Conservative saying that the Democratic Party's woke insanity was going to cost it the election. Remember a few weeks ago I mentioned that he had said that like the future of conservatism was social democratic, and I think he's confused about his own beliefs here. I think he's referring to more traditional conservative welfare states. No, I was wrong. That is full-blown social democratic, what I was talking about there. Now, conservative politics that is social democratic, that has a constituency, as far as I can see, of one, and that is Sohrab Ahmari. Even other figures on...
J.D. Vance is close.
Oh, no, he's not backing unions.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
true.
Even like a Republican Party that gets fully behind unions, workers' rights, says that's the more important element of corporate social control than wokeness.
Yeah.
That is not the Republican
Yeah.
Party.
Yeah.
Like that, they have become something else at that point. But anyway, good luck to him on his lonely integrationist crusade.
On that note, the Fox
Yes.
exit poll, which I assume is a network poll,
Yeah.
had 54% saying that government should do more versus 46% saying it does too much.
Oh no. Reagan is going to be so unhappy.
How about that? Okay,
Yes.
okay. So as we're wrapping up here, I'm going to just note an underrated story which hasn't been covered, but
Yeah.
I just want people to know because it's really cool.
What's that?
Apparently, Brits and Aussies are took election tours of canvassing centres and voting booths because since the American election system is such a circus, people are paying literally $4,500 American dollars to take a tour of it and just to gawk at these people like they're animals in a zoo. How about that? It's true.
Wow. I want to stress again, it's not the election workers that are the problem. It's not the people who are administering the polls and counting the ballots. It's the laws around elections
Well, maybe they went to see some courts as well while
that
they're
are
at it.
the problem.
And finally, I want to give commiserations to the Green Party's Quinoa Zara Livingston,
Okay.
who she hasn't gotten much commiserations, but she deserves it because she lost in Pennsylvania's 30th district. I think this is a state district.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania's 30th district to Tony DeLuca. Tony DeLuca was a very popular member of the Pennsylvania legislature,
Oh yes.
but unfortunately he died a month ago from lymphoma, and she still lost to him. So there's going to be a by-election
Not even
now.
the first dead person to win a congressional election. There have been a lot of them, actually.
But she was the only one who ran against him.
Yeah.
Because the other people didn't even bother to run. So it was just her, just her against a dead guy, and she lost.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This is why we have devoted our lives to studying America.
To take you out, I've got a song which I've been wanting to play for this entire election campaign on Planet America. And I've never been able to work it in because we're always over time and we always cut down.
Yeah.
But we're about to leave the election campaign, so it's about to become extremely irrelevant.
Yep.
So think of it as a celebratory song for Sharice Davids. If you want to know why she did so well in Kansas of all places, just have a look at the level, the caliber of the attack ads delivered against her. And you will find that you can't get out of your head for the next 3 months as well. Enjoy. We'll see you guys next Friday. Play America on Monday and the special on Wednesday night, probably if Trump announces. And then next week we will talk about that guy.
Yes, we will.
Plenty.
Yep.
Okay. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Sherry's Davids.
What's she hiding?
Sherry's Davids.
She's hiding Biden.
Inflation, taxation,
All your frustrations.
Sherry's Davids.
Siding with Biden.
Student loan manipulation, cost of living escalation, Sherry's Davids.
Siding with Biden.
Economic devastation, the wrong track for our nation.
So when you're voting, don't forget what she's promoting.
Sherry's Davids.
Siding with Biden.
And Pelosi.
I'm Amanda Adkins, and I approve this message.